Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Barry, That Goat Metal Show, with my co-host Tone Joker NYC. Look, I'm all fucked up, man. I had a late night. Joker NYC and Rich, the silent producer. We're here with a very special guest from Acheron, Infidel Reich. Vincent Crowley himself is here with us today. I want to thank him for joining us. It's been long overdue, and of course, I want to say thank you, Vincent. I mean, you were one of the people that help my channel out, I gotta say, because it was you and Revik, you guys went and gave us a nice little shout, and it kind of helped us out a lot, man. We totally appreciate that shit, man. Thank you.
We appreciate the support too, man. It's all part of that community of metal. We're trying to unite.
Yeah, man. I mean, with Vincent, More Than Red, Ed from Realms of Metal, and everybody else has just been great, man. Thank you so much for everything, man. Truly appreciate it. All right. So yeah, guys. So look, I'm gonna let Rich start it off. He's got some questions for you, and we're just gonna go around, and we'll just, I'm basically gonna be shooting off at the hip, because that's how I like to do it. I like to shoot off at the hip, and we'll start off with Rich, man. What you got for my man Vincent here?
All right. So yeah, we like to touch back on your career with each of the bands and stuff. But one of the main questions that I usually like to start off with each of the guests is what was some of your journey getting into metal, like some of your earlier bands that you were into that led you into getting into the style of music when you first started your first project.
I'm an older relic. So I had some different influences than a lot of the newer people, but bands like AC/DC and Black Sabbath and Alice Cooper and even to a point the Doors, some weird element, bands that had like dark vibes and stuff. That kind of lured me into it. Then Black Sabbath was definitely my most influential band, and still is today, of what inspired me to even do this. But then in the 80s I was a teenager, so bands like even like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, even when Motley Crue first came out, to shout the devil too fast for love, Stuff Saxon, those bands, I started getting into, and it just kind of morphed. And I remember, I believe there was a magazine called Cream Magazine back in the day. Yeah. And they had an upcoming band, underground bands. And I remember seeing pictures of Venom, Slayer, Manowar, all these bands that were coming out. And I remember seeing that Slayer picture with, the whole band with the girl and the blood. And I was like, oh, I have to check these guys out. And, and my friend got a Metallica album and a Venom album, and then it just snowballed, and it was all underground from there. And throughout the years, it just, moving to Tampa, I was exposed to a lot of killer musicians and bands, and our influences started a death metal scene. So it was a very evolutionary journey for me, for different styles and stuff.
Nice. Tony, you got one?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of your other side project, the Infidel Reich. I was just wanting to know how that came about.
That was weird, because Bob, who used to play drums for Infidel Reich, he used to play drums in Asphyx. He used to play drums in actually a bunch of pretty Soulburn and a bunch of bands. We had all talked. We had been friends for years, since the early '90s. We traded music stuff, and we always talked about it'd be kind of cool to do a project together. And Acheron and Asphyx did a festival in the Netherlands together, and we were talking, and we we got to talk about this sometime. It gets a little bit more serious. Mm-hmm. Well, when the whole cancel culture started, and everybody's getting labeled this, and everybody's a Nazi band, and everybody's this. We had a long discussions, through Messenger, and we were like, this is getting ridiculous. And since we were always influenced by war and destruction and misanthropy, and there's a lot of visuals that look fascist or Nazi like, but it's always been known that especially with the underground, it's about aggression, hate, war, just destruction.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter what symbolisms we were using or imagery. And we thought, you had bands like Carnivore that pushed the buttons. You had bands like SOD. You had someone like Lemmy, and obviously none of those people were Nazis or communists or whatever. They just had a certain gimmick or image to piss people off or make people think. So we go, well, we got to step up and give them something to really be pissed at if they're going to do it. So we thought about names, and at that time, everybody was throwing up the name Infidel. And when you really think of infidel, it's like anybody that doesn't kind of conform to, Christians call people infidels, Muslims call people infidels. It's pretty much who don't follow those standards. And of course, we didn't. So I thought, okay, that's a cool one. And then we really got to have another name, another word to really piss people off. And Reich was there's Sacred Reich, there's other bands, there's Queen's Reich.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put those two together, because Reich, all it means in German is realm. It has nothing to do with Nazis. It's just it's just a word in German. So we put those together, and our whole idea was to make the visuals for the album cover, make the lyrics touch base on lyrics that were going to make people think. And the visuals with the album is really important, because if you look, you might automatically think, oh, these guys are into some fucked up shit, Yeah. But if you look at any one of our albums, none have German references of any sort in the imagery. I think they used English, First World War, fucking armor, equipment, different types of tanks and stuff. But I swear, when the reviews came, they were like, they have all this Nazi stuff on their cover. And it's like,
it put it out there exactly what they want, like what they perceived it to be.
Yes. And the lyrics are very strategic. We talk about stuff, but if you don't read the lyrics all the way through, you might just automatically assume, oh shit, they're talking about this. And that was important to convey that. Don't always read a book by its cover. It's just, it's an artistic creation. There was no political, religious or racial agenda of any kind. And if they were smart, they'd know that there was some non-Caucasians that actually appeared on the album. So fuck you, motherfuckers.
Exactly. So Barry, you got something there?
Yeah, that's always the case with that, man. It's like, people are always going to perceive something just off of an image, and then they're already profiling you. And then when they see, oh shit, hey, wait a minute, who's that black guy playing guitar? Oh, wait a minute, now you got to change everything around.
Yep.
Look at that. Like you mentioned, Peter Steele and Carnivore. He just, come on, he was a Jew. Come on, and some of the stuff that he was talking, like I always go back to in Carnivore, the song Race War. Race War, if you read the lyrics to Race War, it was basically just him telling off somebody else's perspective of how everything is going to turn about, going into a race war. He wasn't saying this is how I feel. He's talking about somebody else's perspective. but nobody looked at it. They just read the lyrics. They see, don't call me your brother, this, that, and the other. And next thing you know, they're all fucking racist.
They don't even read the lyrics.
No.
They don't even read the lyrics.
No.
Those lyrics actually, I had another band called Wolf and Society, and we actually covered that song because what is the very end of the lyrics? It says, "No one wins, we all lose."
Or lose, yep.
Yeah.
So
right.
I always thought it was a genius song to have those triggering earlier lyrics that make you go, you fell from different cunts and your skin's an ugly cut. You're like, whoa, what the fuck? People are automatically, but you have to read the whole lyrics to get to the very end. So again, Carnivore was a big influence for Infidel Reich. They were very big because we had our symbol was actually, if you ever see the power symbol on computers or electric goods, we use that symbol because you could basically turn things on or off, or it's standby and stuff like that. People were saying we were using some fascist symbols. It was a literal electric symbol. So it just shows you how stupid people are. They want to try to find stuff that isn't there.
You talking about the symbol that's on the helmet, right? That I think I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that.
Yes, on the helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on your it's on your phone. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
Unfucking believable. Unbelievable. But that's the best way to go after people is to get them triggered and then make them feel stupid about themselves after they're already triggered for nothing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. You bringing that band up. We did basically 3 albums. The first one's we consider the album. A lot of people call it an EP because it's shorter. But our third album, New World Outrage, which
that's what I'm missing.
I was really proud of that. I thought we did a good job. I really liked what we presented. I thought we touched base on a lot of things, and we got canceled. I mean, we literally got canceled. We have a song called Cancel Culture, and we lived up to the song. And the albums were forbidden on Bandcamp. They Bandcamp told our label that if you put that on the catalog for selling, you will be taken off your whole label's catalog.
Wow.
There were distributors that didn't want to carry the stuff. They blacklisted it. We tried to get some shows in Europe. They blacklisted us. It was so ridiculous, but it totally lived up to what we were standing up against. I mean, it was kind of like we had to martyr ourselves to prove our point.
That's fucking amazing, man.
So yeah, because I'm having a problem finding the last album. I have the first 2. I can't. It's hard to find because they don't have the places to sell it.
You can only get it right now, I think, and that's if you go to Raw Skull Records, and you have to really look for it because that's the label that put it out. They're just, I think, getting rid of what they have, but you have to understand, if you have that copy, you are very few and far between because after that whole thing with Bandcamp and the cancel happened, I talked to the owner and he said, now I got to sit on all these boxes of CDs because I can't sell them. So there's boxes of those albums that have not been put out because this whole situation.
Have you thought about maybe trying to, see if he just gives you a good deal and just take him off his hands and maybe you can get him yourself?
Well, I talked about it back, actually a couple years ago, and it just, the way he dealt with it wasn't going to work out. But he put them on like last year for pretty cheap, and I think I can't remember what they're selling for now.
Hey,
but eventually I'd like to get that re-released, even if it's like, one good thing is South America does not like ban anything. So if we ever want to re-release it, I think we're going to do that in South America and just, let the people go from there.
You know,
Nice.
real quick, Vince. You know that Hell's the what you call this guy's label.
Bangers?
Yeah, that's where I found the cassette at. He doesn't have problems selling any of those. Well, yours is not
Yeah.
that kind of music, but he does sell real bands that are kind of what they call shady. They
Yeah. Yeah, we were thinking about doing a re-release. He's just like their label has so much stuff coming out. It'd be like a long wait. So uh, we'll just sit on it for a little while and release it, when the time's coming, because I really think people have come to the point where they're sick of this shit. And I think
yeah.
you're seeing it with the politics and everything, and people need to stand up finally. And this, especially the metal scene. I don't know where a group of rebels turned into a bunch of, whiny pussies, and that's exactly what the scene has turned into.
It has.
That's
It's a crying shame when you like I know we mentioned about when you got a black metal band bending the knee to fucking people because they got upset that a goat head came out onto the floor.
yeah.
Right?
It's like things are bad when a black metal band apologizes for throwing
Oh,
a
I
goat
know.
head out on the floor.
Yeah. No, it's got that way. It's you apologize if you eat meat. You apologize for this. It's like, there's a group of people that are trying to take over the scene. And, I always said, I don't care what you do, what you believe, you can do what you want, but the music is the music. Keep your views and your politics to yourself, and don't think that you're going to like infiltrate everybody and make them submit to your standards.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. So I wanted to get in a quick question. Moving on to Acheron, I know that you're originally based out of Pittsburgh, and then you shifted out to Tampa, right?
Yeah, I was a nomad for a while. I was actually I was in Florida, and I was playing in the band Nocturnus. And after I left the band, I wanted to, kind of go somewhere else. So I moved up north. I bounced around through I went to Pittsburgh, I went to Detroit, I went to Ohio, and then I ended up going back to Pittsburgh. And that's where I started the actual band, where I actually had the first lineup. So yeah, that's actually the beginning of the band was in Pittsburgh.
Got you. And really quick, just that you mentioned Nocturnus, just out of curiosity, how was it working and playing with Mike Browning?
That was awesome. It was awesome. In fact, he was somebody that, you know, I looked up to as a musician, because I remember being in school and they're playing, Morbid Angel shows, and hearing the whole background of, the diabolical stories of the Morbid Angel. And we got to know each other just from seeing each other at shows. And I had a band called Entity at the time, and we played a show, and Mike actually introduced us. And after he saw me play, he was in a band called Incubus, if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And that band ended up breaking up, and he contacted me about playing in Nocturnus, and that's when the band started. And yeah, it was a great experience, because it was someone I had no experience. I had no recording experience. I had no, I played a show before, but not in front of a real crowd, So I definitely grew up real fast with them. One of the earliest Nocturnus shows we played was with, Wendy O. Williams on her Plasmatic Maggots tour, on her,
Wow.
I just remember playing the show and then watching her and going, yeah, we just got blown away. But it was a lot of learning. And that's why later on, when I came back to Florida and did the first album, Mike joined me again, for Acheron, and, during the second album.
Nice. You got something there, Tom?
Yeah, I was just wanting to ask you, what do you think of the state, how the current what you call bands of death metal are compared to the bands back then? Do you listen to any of the new current bands, or?
You know, I'm not gonna lie. The last year I've really tried to like listen to newer bands. Uh, there's some good stuff out there, but one thing I've learned is you're never. It's like it almost makes those early bands that made an imprint on you. So it's just sticking with me. So when I hear a new death metal band, all I can say is, do I want to listen to this or do I want to put on the old Vader album or, listen to Entombed or Morbid Angel or Deicide? And I always go back to the oldies. And it's not necessarily saying, they're better. I mean, in my opinion, they are just because I like them better. But it's just a different era, different style, different attitude. And I've pretty much reverted back to listening to my 80s and 90s stuff. I'll listen to new bands that I like to have an edge to it. Like, Morton Red was like one of the newer bands, and it's, they're like 2017, so they're not new. But I got introduced to them, later on, and I thought, this is a spark of old school, has a lot of influences. I like the stuff, and there's bands like Morbosa Dad from Texas that are
Yeah.
really good, and those bands that hold the spirit and been around for a long time. I just have more of a kindred feeling towards that. But every once in a while I find bands that I like, and again, I don't usually know how old they are because I don't dig up like bands like Tribulation and Cloak and stuff like that. Those are bands of recent years that I've liked in Solitude that still have that kind of old school kind of vibe. But
Good.
Yeah,
you're not going to see me at too many of the new kung fu shows.
it's funny because that since you said that, it's true because I mean, even me, Tone, and Rich, we've had discussions later on over the years where actually when we were doing our roundtables, where Rich even told me, I think we were getting to it, like talk about doing decades. And when we got to, I think, what decade was it, Rich? The 2010s? He was like, my
Yeah.
God, so much terrible shit that decade. Anything really good. And we were talking, and I pull out some stuff that I might have enjoyed or whatever the case may be. But the one thing I always remembered was the fact that it was everything was getting watered down and people were losing track of what the genres were, whether it be thrash, death, black metal, or whatever. So I'm proud to say, and I, we've heard a few bands that we could say, oh shit, they're bringing back that original sound, and it just you could hear that original sound again. I don't know if you got to see Vincent the interview we did with the Mark from Electrocutioner. So it's an old school thrash metal band from here in New York, and when you hear it, it's that thrash that you remember from the 80s. It's fantastic. And he made it clear this is the sound we wanted to do. So it's like it's good to see bands that are younger bands that want to stick to the formula that was correct instead of trying to blend it into something else that it's not.
Yeah. Well, there's this one band. I don't know if you heard of these guys. Now,
yeah,
now,
I appreciate
that was now you're gonna have to. I have heard your band name pronounced different several times. How do you pronounce it? Because I have the same problem with Acheron.
Yeah. I for years I used to call your band Acheron.
Yep, a lot of people did. A lot of
years
people.
I called it Acheron.
I used to say too.
Yeah, I used to call it Acheron. It's Go to Mentis.
Okay, Go to Mentis.
Yes, Go to Mentis, which it was if you heard the thing, it was a mistake. Originally, I heard it as it was supposed to be the Goat of Mendes. When I was first naming the band, so the guy who told it to me told it straight like that. So I was like, oh, okay. Nobody knew how to spell it, so I spelled it out that way. So that name doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Yeah. So, well, I really liked what you're doing because it has that hardcore element, but it wasn't, I know, some of the hardcore mixed up with metal is I just can't deal with. you guys do it in a good way, which I dig it because it brings back an old school kind of vibe. You know what I mean? That's why I talked about, the karate kicks. It's almost like it has, to me, I always thought it was like metal, hardcore, rapish type stuff that I feel with a lot of this new stuff, and I just don't get into it. Yours at least has like that dark, but kick you in the face at times, stuff.
Mhm.
And I dig that.
Appreciate that.
That's just mentioning like, bands coming out. There's a band locally here called Church. They're a really good death metal band. They're, blasphemous and so I know there's good bands coming out. It's just that especially making music, my time is limited, and I don't listen to music as much as people might think because it's like I'm so bombarded with it. I sometimes silence is golden for me,
Mhm.
But when I do have time, I pull out the special albums, and I don't know about you guys, but even in the 90s where, Acheron was very active and doing stuff, I knew tons of bands, listened to tons of bands, but there are tons of bands I loved. I couldn't tell you 3 songs from their name titles, some of the album names. It was pre that date that I remembered lyrics, that I remembered song titles. Because I think when you're younger, you have that time when you're in
Yeah.
school to absorb all that stuff. When I started to kind of pursue my own thing, I still listened to stuff. I put a CD in the player and stuff, but I didn't absorb them the same way I did back when I was younger because I had other things on my mind too. And
Makes sense.
unfortunately, doing music for this long, it's still been the same way. That's why every once in a while one will grab me where I'll actually fucking really dig into it. But I enjoy music, but I'll never be into it as much as I was like, when you're younger and you have all the time in the world to do it.
Gotcha. And then we wanted to also talk a little bit about this particular album.
Oh
This one
yeah, I think I
stands.
heard that.
Yeah. This is a massive album. Out of curiosity, the interludes that intertwine the music, you also created that like in the studio. Like how did that go? That each song almost had an interlude that went one into another. Like what that idea of that coming up?
Well, I'll actually get into something which I don't really get into with people. I have mentioned it, but no one ever really talks about it. You always see YouTube and they'll say most satanic bands and and they always pick these bands that never did stuff or, not even, and it always makes me laugh because when that album was done, if you ever saw the movie Trick or Treat, Sammy
Yeah.
Kerr,
Mm-hmm.
he did a ritual on the album. So Peter Gilmore, who was actually at the time Peter Gilmore right now is the present high priest of the Church of Satan. He was working with Anton LaVey back in the day before it was that. We got to know each other and we got the idea of let's do the actual Black Mass set to music. So that whole album from beginning to end is the actual ritual from start to finish. If you would watch someone perform a Black Mass, that's exactly what you're listening to. Peter is the one that did all the intros. Yeah, he created the intros. He did the spoken word stuff for the intros.
That's nice. That's cool.
And another thing people don't really hear too much is the Church of Satan and Anton LaVey sanctioned this album and approved it and gave its unholy blessings. So not to be arrogant or cocky, but when they talk about the most satanic bands out there and albums, sorry, I haven't seen anybody that done what we did, and we never get the recognition for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Classic.
That's awesome.
Yep. Anybody who wants to get into Acheron, I recommend this one is a massive album for them to listen to. This is mandatory listening.
Yeah. Exactly. And I guess with that, we'll jump right into I mean, we mentioned Infidel Reich. Let's talk about your band, right? Vincent Crowley. And I know you said basically you have a lot of influences, from when you were doing that, as far as like like Alice Cooper, King Diamond, and you could see basically the story element in those albums. Just let us know as far as what was the drive to get this done, because the one thing I'll give you, Vincent, is that you basically did. I think when it came to the genre of metal, we'll just say metal in general, because not death metal, thrash, genre metal, you pretty much, I think, did your part in every single thing. And now you threw this element in there, and it's an element I don't think anybody's really even heard, because it's so you got the storytelling element in there, but you also got the viciousness with your vocals and stuff. So it gives it a different atmosphere than compared to somebody else like a King Diamond or somebody like that. So just let us know what was your drive to get that going.
Well, the last Acheron album we did was Cult des Hasses, and if you listen to that album, it has the aggression in it, but you can tell musically, Art and I were heading a different direction, and we were kind of wanting to test other grounds. We released the album. There were some issues with, there was no touring for it and stuff. There was just a lot of shit, and I got sick of the industry stuff. So I decided we'll do several years of just playing shows, no more albums, just have a good time, play for those fans we didn't get to, and go from there. Well, when we were doing that, Art and I were writing some music, and we even kind of worked it in, kind of tried it out with some of the guys we were working with in Acheron. He even did a recording that didn't end up manifesting, but it was not sounding like Acheron. And I didn't want to pop out an album and go, okay, here, we're totally changing, and kind of make the fans pissed off like they are very easily do.
Yeah.
So we decided to end the band and pursue something else. We didn't know what we were going to do, but we knew we were going to do something else. So after the band ended, we started to work on songs, and the main thing I wanted to do is both Art and our guitarist, Art Taylor, we are massive King Diamond fans, and we are massive Black Sabbath fans and Doom and Candlemass. We wanted to do something more like a Candlemass, where, Candlemass, they have the slow songs, but they also have the upbeat songs.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to use my vocals to kind of give it a different spin. We wanted to have some drumming that was maybe a little bit more extreme than a King Diamond would be, and see how that would go. So we started writing music and trying to think of a band name. We couldn't come up with something. And we had done a show in Texas under my name because they wanted to do an Acheron set. And I said Acheron was done. I didn't want to do it, but it was a cool festival. The guy was a big fan. So I did it, the Rights of the Black Mass set, under my name. Had the logo done and everything. So Art told me, he goes, people know you from Acheron, know your name. If we use your name in that logo, people will get the connection, and we won't have to try to, grab people and say, hey, here's my new band, or whatever the new band is. So we took the King Diamond approach, used my name. It's a band name, but it's my name too. And the whole element was to create songs that were more like you were experiencing a movie or inside a book. And the music was more of a background of making you feel the certain way while you're hearing the lyrics. And telling stories. The first album was based on, they were horror stuff, but it was based on death. And the second one evolved more onto just horror stories, and the feel just came together, and combining, the keyboards and the guitar tones and the vocals and the layer, because I do a lot of vocal layers and the stuff. You might hear me, doing an aggressive growl, but I might be whispering behind it, or there's a lot of that stuff in there, and we've really enjoyed doing that, and I look forward to continue doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta say, because look, this, and we've said it hands down, and I know we're not the only YouTubers to say it. One of the best albums in 2024, hands down. And it's got to be at least top 5 to some fantastic album, man.
The production is really good on there. The layering, the concept of how the songs intertwine with the guitar work really stands out really good. It's really enjoyable. It's something that you could listen to straight through and not have to skip. Just songs. Yeah. So you guys really did a good job on it.
I appreciate
Love the artwork. The artwork is maybe the best one from a lot of releases this year.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, the artist Timo Juarez, he did a lot of the Acheron stuff in the 2000s. So we continued to work with him. He actually did the first, DC album too. So it was good. And it's the second album, Anthology of Horror. We had added a guitarist for the bonus tracks of the first album named Eric Stewart. Now, Eric and Art have a long history together. They actually, back in the day, played in the King Diamond tribute band. So they just click. And those guys are like the right and left hand together. They just work well. And I think we really needed that to go where we were going, because a lot of guitarists, they have egos, and they want to outshine. These guys work with each other, and they don't try to show off. They try to make the best for the song, and it's been a great experience working with them.
Right.
That's awesome.
Quick question: what came about for you to use the Amityville house?
We had the song Amityville Horror, and I always loved that artwork. I mean, I was a little kid, I was like obsessed with that house. I used to draw it. I used to, it was just, I had the book. It was just one of those things as a kid. I just thought I want to use it for a cover. And then when Timo was doing the cover, he said, why don't I do it as one big piece, and I'll have visuals of every song somewhere in the visuals. So you got the vampire, you had the werewolf, you had the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and me. Mm-hmm. So the concept just was really good. And then when I sent the stuff to the record label, and I didn't even think about this, he goes, well, you definitely showed your King Diamond influence. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, think of them. And I'm like, the house, of course.
Yes.
Like,
them, the classic.
So that wasn't even done intentionally, but obviously that was a major influence. But it kind of fit the puzzle pieces.
Nice.
Have you ever visited seen the house in person, or ever visited if you come to New York?
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, but I definitely plan on sometime trying to find it. I wish I would have found it before they switched up they changed the windows. Yeah,
they switched it up. Yeah, I think the only thing you get out there now is like a plaque or something, or something.
They changed up the address too. The address is no longer the original address to it. I got to see the house in '79 when I was a kid, when the whole thing blew up on the movie. My father lived in Long Island. He drove towards the house. I remember as a kid that police was up around the house because people were going crazy to take pictures. And they just kept on telling my father, keep moving. He just caught just the glance driving by. Yeah.
I always thought, whether the story be real or not, when are you gonna get a house with that visual that just looks fucking evil?
Yes.
I mean, those windows look like eyes, and it just was like perfect, and yeah, it was that whole story in the house was a big influence, and I was really glad to actually even do a music video on the house. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Anything, Rich?
Yeah, Barry.
No, I was just I was gonna say, as far as some of the stuff that he got there on the album, that song, the one song, there's always that one song on an album that always just that drives you. And I'm a big fan of What Lurks Below the Sea. Yeah, I love that fucking song. I mean, the video is great too, but it's just something about it. I just it's just, there's always when you have an album that you like, but there's that one song that grabs you, and that's the song that grabs me. Like when you were doing the lyrics, I mean, I'm sure everything came from the story, but like, what was your main focus, as far as like trying to pinpoint it with the video and stuff like that?
What it was like, all the stories that I told, Amityville pretty much stuck to the story. The one with That Which Lurks, it was kind of take the Cthulhu story and kind of change it a bit,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, because it did.
Yeah,
it was a lot of little things, but it was just perfect. I love it.
Because believe it or not, there was a show called Black Sails. It was like a pirate movie or series that was on, and it was shot really dark looking. It was gritty and stuff. And I always thought, it's like, that would be interesting to have like a crew of just like degenerates, or someone that wants to conquer something and going out and trying to capture this beast or find out this thing and have it just destroy them and all the shit they experience for the madness and stuff. So that was a big influence on how that came about. But yeah, it got to the point too, after the album got released, because we had been playing it at practice and we did it a couple times live, and we had some people going, yeah, I just missed the bells and the keyboards that are in it live. So we've actually been practicing and learning how to play to a click and have those elements live, which it's different. We've played the clicks in the studio before, but play live, that's a whole different animal. So we're getting used to that, and it definitely brings out the whole atmosphere of the song. And those keys and sound effects definitely are an important part of getting that vibe for the songs.
Yeah, nice. I mean, because like I said, when I listen to some of the stuff there now, one more thing before I'm gonna get over to Rich. Listening to the album, and as far as the way you was, progressing the album and had little elements, I just have one, like maybe a fan thing in your head. If you had to pick one song on the album and you got King Diamond to do a song with you, which song would it be?
Ooh.
Because I can imagine
probably Under the Hanging Tree.
Yeah, I get that's a good one. That's a good one. Absolutely. I could picture him doing his tones in there. That would be that would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Nice.
That was definitely, I could tell when Art brought that to the table, it was like you could tell his Merciful Fate influence was definitely there.
Definitely. I mean, because you could tell. I mean, you could definitely hear the influence through the songs and through the way that the structure is, and it's just great. You could tell, and I'm sure. I mean, I don't know if King Diamond has heard your stuff, but I'm sure he'd be proud.
But I always tell people, it's like, if the one thing, if I could end my career with opening for King Diamond, that would be the best thing I ever did.
Hey, look, you never know, man. He's what is it? He's talking retirement, but you know how that always happens. They talk retirement, and retirement lasts 2 to 3 year shows. You might get that opportunity. You never know.
Yeah.
I had told the story early on when I was, started doing the Q&As on the YouTube, there was a time where Acheron did a tour in Mexico. And when we came back, a friend of mine that organized the tour, he goes, "Hey man, someone wants to talk to you on the phone." And I was like, "That's cool." And I grabbed the phone. I go, "Who is it?" He goes, "It's King Diamond." Now, my friend headed the Merciful Fate or King Diamond fan club in Texas. So he knew King, and he was like, he keep in touch every once in a while. And I thought he was joking at first, but then I start talking, and it's King Diamond, and talk about a deer in headlights. So I was like, not ready for it. And he had taken a break for a short time, and that's when he was coming back and doing shows. And you know, I have no idea if he even knew who I was or just being cool talking, you know, because my friend goes, "Yeah, he's, you know, this is Vincent Crowley. He's in the Church of Satan. He plays in the band," and they blah blah. You know, that doesn't mean he knows who I am, you know. But he was very, very cool, down to earth, told me about stuff, and we were on the phone for like 5 minutes. Like that's 5 minutes of his life with someone he don't know who the fuck he is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the coolest thing, and from that, I took that and I go, man, I will always try to follow like that. You know, if people want to talk, I try to not pull that fucking like I'm too good to talk to you or I don't have time to talk to you. That was a big impact on me as how to treat people in this business.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's great.
All right,
I had a quick question. I forgot to mention it back in the early 90s. There was a character that was brought up by the name of Bob Larson. And I think you have made like an appearance on his show and stuff like that. How did that come about?
Well, Bob Larson, he was a Christian talk show host on a AM channel, and it went throughout different states in the USA, and Tampa just happened to do it. He used to always talk smack about metal and bands and stuff, and you know, Satanism, and just by, I mean, even like so many people I know in bands and fans that were in Tampa at the time, we used to laugh and just, I remember going to my friend's house, they'd be getting stoned and fucking just like pull out beer and everyone's laughing at this guy. And some people crank call him and talk shit. And so it got to the point where some people start, you know, prank calling the guy. And he started, I think Glenn Benton talked to him, Trey from Morbid Angel talked to him, and someone brought us up. I end up talking to him on the phone, and I was back and forth a couple times being a smart ass. And he like challenged me to go out to Colorado and meet him in person, be on his show and do a video. So I was like, okay. So the guitarist at the time and I flew out to Denver, and holy shit, if I ever thought he was a con man before, this just fucking put the big stamp of approval on it. I mean, the guy had a group of people on computers in the back that fed him verses and responses to everything you would debate him. He tried to get us to be, you know, we didn't take that very seriously, and we kind of probably should have. We had more of a fucking fun time, and I was a little pissed because he had a group of kids watching, and that wasn't agreed on, like these high school kids in the other room. And yeah, so if you see the video, it's like a Jerry Springer meets, you know, some Christian evangelist. He put out a video for that. It was entertaining. It was stupid, but you know, it got us a lot of publicity and got the album right, the Black Mass a lot of notoriety. I think it was in 96 because I did that video, I believe in 92 or 93. He challenged me again to do a debate in Texas, and he flew me to Fort Worth to do a debate. And it was in front of like over 1,000 Christians at this big church.
Oh, man.
And it was quite funny because it was like a WWE match talking shit. And I remember I told the guy, I was like, because he wanted me to fly out, and he was like, going, oh, we'll take care of expenses, and we'll get you back home. And I was like, well, what am I getting out of it? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, you're gonna pay me. You're also going to have my friend that's going to be my bodyguard because I don't trust you guys to be my security here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, we can't do that. You can't. So I was like, okay, no deal. And I hung up the phone. And like 15 minutes later, I had 2 plane tickets. I had a decent amount of cash. And he put us up in a killer hotel, all expenses paid. So we went there and had actually pretty good time. My buddy, I don't know how he kept a straight face, but we brought this bird cage, and we had an upside down crucifix and stuff pages of the Bible underneath it. But we put a black rag over it so you couldn't see it. And he just stood there next to me, not a word. He just held this thing up. And finally, Bob Larson's like, what's in there? He goes, oh, we got you a gift. He looks at it, and of course he makes a big deal out of it. And it was just very entertaining. And I remember before the show, this is the type of person Bob Larson is. I used to have these knee-high fucking like biker type boots. And on the bottom of the boots, I glued a steel crucifix. And I was talking to him backstage, and I was sitting down. I had my leg up on my foot on my leg, and he goes, "Is that a cross on your boot?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Why do you have one on your boot?" And I just looked at him real straight faced. I said, "That's because every time I take a step, I get to step on your Jesus's face." And and you would think he'd be like, "Oh." He smiled from ear to ear and goes, "That's great. We'll have to try to bring it up on the show."
Oh, man.
So if you followed him from after that, he actually got a job on the Sci-Fi Channel as the Real Exorcist. Do you ever see that show?
No.
And then he did a show training his 3 daughters to be female exorcist, teenage exorcist. It was very entertaining, and I enjoyed doing it, but I look back and I go, man, why did I even go in that video? Because it's so fucking stupid. But it was, people got entertained. That's what it's supposed to be entertained.
You was the satanic heel.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
You got another one, Tom?
Yeah, I talk a lot with Morton Red. He was telling me you were big into horror and stuff. What do you prefer, American horror or Italian horror? If so, what your favorite ones are?
It's a mix, man. It just depends on actually I actually go by movies instead of like, there's a lot of people go, this director or this place. I just go by like movies,
Mm-hmm.
My favorite movies, if you were going to say movies, would be the Omen trilogy, Amityville Horror, Zombie. I have a real special thing for Dawn of the Dead, the original, just because I think I saw that as a teenager in the fucking midnight movies about 1 million times. It was just
that's a classic.
A great movie, yeah.
And actually, it's like, we talk about remembering names of movies and stuff, or bands and stuff. I have seen so many really good Irish movies lately too. But right off the bat, I don't remember the names. My wife and I have been really watching a lot of good Irish horror movies, but it's a mix, you know. I like stuff from all over the place.
Yeah, a lot of those Irish movies are on the Shutter channel. You got it from there, or you buy physical of them?
It's probably either Shutter. We have like 50 million apps, and we have Shutter, and you know I have was it Scare?
That's a
We
good
have a
one.
couple horror, yeah. So we
Nice,
do
nice.
that. But like I said, it really sucks because nowadays we'll watch so many movies and I'll forget the names by the end of the week. And I'm like going, God damn it.
Yeah, but they don't stick in your head like the old school ones. Those stay in your head because they're so memorable. Because we watched them when we were younger, and it was the first of their kinds. They weren't like the current ones, which are remakes.
Yeah, I think there's still good ones. I think the difference was because I can remember this. I remember the old, here I go dating myself, renting VCRs. Your parents rent VCRs to watch movies.
Yeah.
And you would rent like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but you wouldn't watch it just once. You'd watch it like 4 times before you returned it the next day. You have your friends over to watch it, and I think that's what made them more memorable because they weren't as accessible. Like you can watch basically 100 movies tonight if you wanted to. It's just, are you going to remember all those movies?
Yeah.
So we were much more limited back in the day.
Yeah, it's true. How you feel about remakes? Some of the classics that have been remade.
It depends on the remake. It's I in fact like the Halloween with Rob Zombie. I I was actually glad to see that Revok liked the first remake because I thought the first Halloween remake with Rob Zombie was actually decent. There was some stuff in it I didn't like, some visual stuff that I didn't think needed to be in there. That just seemed like stuff that Rob Zombie puts in his movies for no reason. But the second one, not so much. Let me see. I thought all the Texas Chainsaws
Yeah, they were good.
were good. The prequels, all that stuff. I like that. Um,
What about Dawn of the Dead? That's one of your favorites, right? What you thought they did with the remake?
Good job, but they'll never like. My wife loves the remake. I I like it, but I'm like I said, I'm just my black heart goes to the original too much.
Yeah, it's that the remake of Dawn of the Dead was more like if you could just name it another title, it would be okay. You could just not compare it to the original because it did have its own sneak to thing, even though they threw a couple, the mall and all that, but it did have things in there that were a little different. I mean, I told my wife, I was talking to her about it yesterday. I said I felt like to me, the one thing they took away from was the whole aspect of zombies being slow, and in the remake they were fucking track stars. To me, that made it more horrifying.
Right.
They were able to catch up to you, and that to me that made it a little bit more scarier to watch. So that was the only thing I think I really appreciated from that remake.
Yeah. I even think the Amityville Horror remake wasn't bad. It's just Ryan Reynolds. He didn't do a bad job. It's just that his character, you just know him as goofy stuff. So it was kind of hard to take him serious, but I didn't think they did a bad job on that.
You remember the Psycho? When they did the remake, they used that comedy guy too. That destroyed that whole movie.
Yeah, that was terrible. And the woman, I forget her name, the one that died, or she was like, God, I forget her name. The one that played the main blonde role in it, she did a shitty job too, I thought. But yeah, it's like a hit or miss for remakes. I'm not against them if you're gonna put some like the reason I like the new Halloween with the Rob Zombie is because he did throw something different in it. You heard him like when you stabbing somebody, like you're hearing the things. So it wasn't being a total copy of the original. Because when you have a classic, if you just copy it, you're saying that classic, if you watch it now, doesn't make a difference, and it does. So if you do something a little bit different but stay true to the story, that's. But you have to do something unique and different to make it worthwhile, I think.
That's true.
Yeah, man. How do you feel about the new Terrifier movie that's coming out? That trilogy.
I cannot wait. I mean, that's one of my favorite new franchises, man. It's like,
Yeah.
when the hell do you get a third movie that, I mean, usually by the second movie, the character's goofy and they got more, PG-13 bullshit and stuff. It's like they're coming out the gates with like severed heads of kids on heads and shit. It's like.
And they're talking about this one is gonna. He's like they're topping every movie with the kills and so I'm like they were saying that this one is gonna be crazy. So looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
We needed another, horror villain to step up because, you can only milk Freddy and Leatherface and, Jason for how long? You need to, expand on that stuff. And I wish they would do less remakes and more original stuff like the Terrifier stuff.
Yeah, that I agree with that. They need to start broadening their horizon a little bit more. Like, just give us something new. I mean, it's the same thing what we say about the reboots and all that stuff. Because it's like it's not original no more. You're not creating. That's what I'm saying. You're not creating. Give us a good creation. Terrifier. That's why I think everybody likes Terrifier. I even enjoyed that me and Tone talked about it. Not the first one, but the second, the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah.
The second one was crazy, man, and it was even though it's supposed to be off that Disney shit, but it's actually pretty good. It was me and my wife enjoyed the second movie. It was pretty bloody.
Oh, I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the new one.
No,
You could pretty much do away with the first one, even though they have concepts of what happened in the first one because it's supposed to be like a continuation. But you could do away with it because they have more money, they have a bigger budget, so you can see the makeup looks better, the blood looks better. It's it looks really good. It's visually it looks better, and now I'm looking forward to the third one.
Yeah, that'd be good. And so you know what they should have made a character in the 90s could have been big if they would have given the proper thing. You remember the Wishmaster?
Oh man.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
He had the best voice.
Yeah.
I thought his best voice.
What is thy wish?
Yeah.
Now, talking about remakes, like there's some movies I think you just can't remake. I mean, one with at least to me is Candyman.
No.
Because Tony Todd is Candyman and you cannot replace him. And I don't know why. When I saw that remake, I was not a fan. I was just like that to me was almost like if you redid Phantasm and replaced, the tall man. You cannot replace Angus.
Can't replace Angus. That's his character. It's the same thing with Freddy. You can't replace.
With Robert Englund. Yeah,
Robert Englund. They tried it with that garbage and bombed.
Yeah. What's weird? I thought the storyline was a lot more fucking disturbing in that one, but you just make another movie, use another character, or use Robert Englund. It's like you just can't replace that character. It's just even Hellraiser. I didn't hate the new one, but you've already introduced Pinhead as a cinema character that people consider iconic.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
I don't know. It just seemed weird. I understood where they were going. They wanted to go make it feel more towards the book, but you've already like unleashed, the demons. So keep them there.
Definitely, yeah.
I didn't really care for the remake of the Hellraiser.
Yeah. What are you talking about? The one they did on with the female?
With the woman, the female.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. It wasn't like, oh my God, it was just okay. Because I know they were trying to stick more to to the original storyline of the book and stuff. But
you have to figure out too. Of course, they're going to do that because the character was supposed to be androgynistic, and what is today?
Yep.
Everything has to be that way.
Yep. Everything got to be that way.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Rich, you got something else there, Rich?
Let me think. You know what? I had a friend of mine from Pittsburgh. His name is Scott. He's a big fan, and he said, "Hey, if you got a little time, squeeze in a question." He had wondered what your experience was working with Turbo Music, which I guess was the label that put out your first album. It was, I guess, known to not be a good label. I think they put out the first Beherit album on there, and they put out the rights of the Black Mass, right?
Yeah, that was one of the most horrible experiences I've dealt with, and talking about starting a career out. Well, let's just say this. There was a record store in Tampa called Aces Records, and they carried all the metal, they carried imports and stuff. The only way I got a copy of that album is because I bought my own album at that record store.
Yeah.
They didn't send us copies. As soon as they got all the reels and stuff, they cut communications. I mean, I was talking to these guys almost every day. Back then I had a fax machine, so I could, because overseas calls were like expensive, and we would talk, and they would be, "Oh yeah, we got you. We're going to get you a tour with Deicide," and blah blah blah, and we're talking. And it got to the point where they were telling us to keep time away for this Deicide tour. And I just happened to talk to Glenn and Steve at a show. And I said, "Did you hear anything about this tour?" And they're like, "No." They said, "We're actually going over there." And I can't remember what band they were going over with. And it wasn't us. So they were lying to string us along to make it feel like they're going to do all this stuff. And yeah, we battled with them for years. They actually, we re-released the album over here on Gale America. That was the American release at that time. They were kind of shady too, that they didn't screw us over as much as the other one. But yeah, Turbo ended up popping up several different times throughout the next 2 decades under different label names, re-pressed the album. Bootlegged them, went out of business, come back another couple years, press the album.
Yeah.
I've literally seen zero money of that album through all these years, and that's probably our best-selling album.
Wow, that's horrible. Sorry that occurred. Yeah. I also had a follow-up with Scott, the same guy. He had a memory kind of question. He asked me if you remember playing a benefit show in Pittsburgh for Jill Lilson McKenzie over a decade ago, around 2013. It was almost like a 90s reunion with your band, Incantation, Ratravor, and Dercada. If you have any memories of that and any other shows that really stood out in your career, like top shows that stand out for you.
Yeah, I mean, that show was definitely special because it's Pittsburgh's always been a special place for me, because I kind of came into their scene. I didn't know anybody. I mean, I happened to have family there that I was staying with, and my grandparents were like, "See how it is here. If you like it, stay. If not, you can leave," And I kind of researched the area. I found some bands I like. I remember going to they have a record store called Ides, and I picked up the Sathanas demo and the Unslaughter demo, and I was like, "Oh wow, they got some cool shit up here." It's like I'll have to write these guys letters. So I actually contacted Sathanas, and they had just broken up, and a couple of the guys in the band end up being in Acheron. You know, that's how the Acheron kind of started forming. But, you know,
Wow.
we made friendships there with, you know, Batham, Derkada, Rochester, you know, those bands. So to come back and do a show for the benefit for Jill, it was cool to play back in the pit, in the Berg, as we call it, and see a lot of old friends. Yeah, it's been a minute. I heard Pittsburgh scene has changed a lot now. I know some people, some friends of mine that live there still say it's really bad, gone downhill, and that's a shame because of all the places I've lived, and I've lived in many, they were probably some of the coolest people in that area that, you know, supporting no attitudes and stuff like that. So that was definitely a killer show. Another cool show I thought was Acheron did a show with Nocturnus, and just to be back on stage with Mike, you know, I got up and did some backups of her Nocturnus song, and then, you know, at the very end of the Acheron set, I had, you know, Mike, was it Mike, Tony, and Belial come up and do a couple old Acheron songs, like the alumni of Acheron. So
Nice.
it was fun. So those kind of shows I always like, you know, it's more of a personal thing.
Nice. You got one, Tom?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, besides, you know, we all know metal and all that, what other types of music besides metal you listen to, if you have?
I listen to a lot of stuff. I mean, what's funny is I always tell people, people probably wouldn't say one of my top 10 bands would be Leonard Skinner. I love Southern rock. I actually got, you know, brought up on that, you know, Molly Hatchet, you know, Leonard Skinner, Blackfoot. I was kind of like that, the heavier Southern rock. I like outlaw country too. The older stuff that had, you know, people wrote songs that meant something, not just, you know, pop songs like they do today. The old punk, hard, you know,
Yeah.
Black Flag, Misfits, DRI, you know, all that kind of stuff. Electronic stuff, industrial, classical, you know. I like all kinds of music. You know, there's not too much stuff. I don't like hip hop. I don't like disco, although I will play it sometimes to laugh and just remember the stupidity of that shit. And like sometimes my wife and I would just put a disco song on just to laugh and go, God, this music's like terrible.
So we're gonna say, like when I mentioned before about how you were doing different genres. So an industrial Southern rock band is in the future.
Oh shit!
Yeah, that sounds good.
That'd be awesome.
You know, hey man, I will buy that. I'll make sure to get that first pressing, man, autograph, man. That would be awesome. Maybe get some Molly, Linda Skinner, do a little part in there. You know, get some people up in there. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, you know, I think a lot of people think that, you know, if you like metal, you gotta kind of be stuck in one area, and I don't get it, because, you know, I know a lot of people make fun of David Vincent because he did the country album, and then he played in like the Genitorturers that are like an industrial kind of band. And, you know, I can see people see, like, you know, you see a photo and they're all one way, and then another way it's like they're totally different, and then another way they're totally different. It's kind of odd and stuff, but if it's a different musical project, I mean, I don't have a fucking problem with people doing that stuff. You know, I think it's you're an artist, do what the fuck you want. And that to me is being satanic, not being like, I'm only play fucking, you know, black death metal and fuck everything else and shit.
Yeah. That's why I like asking that question, because I ask more than everybody. It's good to know that you're all the way around it with all different types of music, because there's so much good music out there that's not metal too.
Yeah. And that was another refreshing thing with Revok. You know, when I first started watching the Morton Red channel, I told him when I first found his channel, he was doing a video on JL America, the label in the US to put out rights to the Black Mass. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Someone's doing an actual video on that. So I watched it. And, you know, as I told him, I said, I hear this maniac screaming and shit. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I got to check this shit out, man. Fuck it. I was like, this is fucking cool. And I got, you know, addicted to watching his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a very vast, you know, catalog of music he likes. And I can respect that. And you can actually, the new album, which, you know, he let me hear, really has a lot of different influences on it. And you could tell, you know, their past releases, you can tell, but on this album, you got 9 songs and each one has its own vibe and it has different elements to it. And I'm like going, that's fucking great, man. It's like fucking, I like that so much more than if you get like, okay, I'm going to have a blast beat from song 1 to song 9 and it's going to be the same kind of repetitive shit. I just don't get into that. You know, that's just my personal thing.
It's good.
Well, I mean, I guess we're gonna be getting to the winding down part. So I'm gonna go with my end question. All right. We just finished, and one thing I'll say is, Vincent, you, besides the fact you are a very underrated bass player, as a former bass player, I'm gonna tell you that. I think your bass playing is phenomenal. I'm gonna tell you that straight. Not because you're my friend. I've always enjoyed your bass playing. I think it's fabulous.
Well, I don't know what the drugs you're on, but yeah.
Hey, look, man. I mean, look, some of the stuff that you guys are doing there, I mean, you know, no average bass player could do what you can do. So I'll just leave it at that. All right. So considering we just finished having yesterday the 38th anniversary of Cliff Burton's death, and to me, that was my bass idol when I started playing bass. He's the one who pretty much propelled me into playing music. He's my top-notch bass player. I mean, I have other bass players that I do enjoy. Who would be your 5 influential bass players?
Okay, right off the bat, and it's just because the first real heavy band I liked is Geezer Butler.
Yeah, Geezer.
Right, Geezer.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, not to mention, you know, Geezer started out as a guitarist and then ended up this phenomenal bass player, you know, and his licks and riffs within the songs are just as important as the guitar part.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Second has to be the king, Lemmy.
Yes, Lemmy.
You know, Lemmy put balls into everything. He was raw, gritty, that sound, that tone. It just was like, yeah, he represents just the rebel soul of a bass player right there.
Yep.
Steve Harris, Iron Maiden.
Yeah,
Iron Maiden. Yep.
Iron Maiden.
I mean, that guy is amazing. I mean, his work stuff. I mean, just everything he writes is just phenomenal. You always think about him. I'm gonna throw one off the Mr. Peter Steele.
Yeah.
Very underrated. Very
underrated guy.
Mm-hmm,
very underrated. I mean, especially since he's like the majority of the songwriters, you know, writing on the stuff. Had a lot of different sounds. He had a very heavy, unique bass sound too, you know. Yeah. What fifth one now? I'm gonna have to really think. Trying to think of somebody that'd be like kind of out there. Oh, you just mentioned Cliff Burton. Who am I talking about? That's an easy one. Yeah, because story is, you know, when my friend bought Kill 'Em All, he lent me the vinyl, and I remember we had school, and he goes, "I just check it out and bring it to me tomorrow." So it was later in the day, and I turned on, listened to started listening, and I had fallen asleep on Metallica. That's like blasphemous, but it was like late, and I fucking probably fucked up, fucking fell asleep, and I woke up to this fucking and I was like, what the fuck am I listening to? And it was pulling teeth. It's like, and then it really made me listen to that whole fucking album. I'm like going, wow, this is amazing. And yeah, he took bass playing to another level. And I mean, hell, fucking wore Leonard Skinner shirts. You gotta love it too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, man. I mean, that I still say that, and we all say it. I think that the debate is, if he never got killed, would Metallica would have gone that route that they went to after after he died?
Never.
I think he would have quit if that was the.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like Deuce, what's his name? Jason, the other bass player there, he quit.
Yeah. And it made me wonder too, as big as Metallica are they that big because they changed, or are they just like putting out albums and they're still living off their old stuff? Because there are people that like that new crap, and I don't know who are the bigger fans. Like, are there more fans from the old stuff, or are there more fans from the new stuff? Because it makes you wonder, if they did stay the way they were, how big would they be right now?
Yeah, I mean, they tend to recycle the old stuff here and there. I mean, what was it, the Stranger Things, when they were doing Master of Puppets? All of a sudden, it just shot up on Spotify, like became the #1 song downloaded at some point. And so, they do things like that, and it's just going to regenerate the old stuff. But yeah, I mean, come on, it's like the real fans. The old school fans remember what Metallica was. And then when they decided to go and do that stuff, and Ramon said it, my guitarist, we blame Lars, and I blame Lars only. I think that's it. I don't care. That's Lars' fault. I believe that story that Scott Ian said about him and Cliff Burton talking when they were touring, that he mentioned it. He said that there was actual talks about them getting rid of Lars. So there was always that conspiracy theory, about, right. Lars probably might have found out about it. Who knows if, hey, right. With all the conspiracy theory out there, but hey, you never know. And I believe that, because I think that if Cliff would have spoke, James and Kirk would have followed, and Lars would have been left behind, and they could have got a way better drummer. And forget it, who knows where Metallica would have been. I mean, as far as they're still making millions, but as far as the real fans, I think we would have gotten better music.
What do you guys think? Because I mean, I've heard mixed things with that, and it really depends on, like, I think the age bracket. I think personally, And Justice for All was their last good album.
Me too.
Absolutely.
I think that the first 4 albums, and maybe if you want to throw in the 598 LP, it was fun. But the first 4 albums was the cutoff mark for Metallica.
Absolutely.
Personally.
Because everyone complains about the whole, Load albums, but I think the Black Album is what did them in, because I didn't like it. I mean, it's like one of those things. You ever have the radio on, like you're at work or something, and a song comes on, you don't like it, but you don't hate it, but then you can deal with it. That to me is that whole album. It's like, it's not going to make me go, I got to change the channel real fast, but it's like, I never want to listen to it. I'm not going to put it on or anything.
Totally.
And the other thing a lot of people forgot too, that the first 2 albums up to Ride the Lightning, a lot of that material was written by Dave Mustaine. Yeah. So you don't know if they were beginning to wonder, if they could write as good as all those riffs were.
Yeah. And I think, even though I'm not a fan of Dave as a person, I think he's a better songwriter than, them. He definitely comes out with more aggressive, catchy licks and riffs. So, yeah, it would have been interesting to see what, Master of Puppets would have been. That was a really good song. Kurt Hammett seems like a cool guy, like, into horror and stuff like that. But I never was a big fan of his leads. I always thought Dave Mustaine was a killer guitar player, and you know, hearing him on Metallica stuff would have been a lot more interesting, I think.
Gotcha.
I
And
agree.
I want to kind of jump in and get off of Metallica for a little bit,
Right.
because I've been holding this question almost towards the end, because this is pretty big news and I want to hear it from you. Recently this week on Facebook, you said that you posted that in the year 2025, 2026, there's a possibility of some Acheron shows coming up. Tell us about this big announcement.
Yes, so it was weird because I was ready when I started the whole Vincent Crowley band. I was looking for the next chapter, and I had a good time with Acheron. I've had bad times with Acheron. I thought I did everything I did. There's bands kind of doing the satanic thing, and let them have a time at doing it, and I concentrated on that. Actually, in the last year, Rights of the Mass has been like, I've been seeing people, doing shirts, talking about the album, repressings coming. Just it's been a lot more interest for that album. And I actually mentioned on one of my posts, I was like, I listened to Rights of the Black Man. I hadn't done it in like years, literally, because it's not like you sit down and listen to your fucking own music. And I was like, yeah, that was pretty fun to play back then. It kind of brought back memories. And I thought, man, I haven't played bass in a while, I can do both. I don't have to make this like it's, Acheron back full force. We're going to do albums and stuff like this. I wouldn't mind doing some festivals. So I decided that in 2025 and 2026, we're going to book Acheron shows, and we are going to do sets that have music from Rights of the Black Mass and the Anti-God, Antichrist EP.
Nice.
So there's already 7 already booked. I mean, it's been a pretty wildfire for interest, and I've been kind of trying to figure out which ones to choose, which ones to pick, which ones seem the more feasible. But we do have shows booked in Brazil. We have shows in Finland, show in
Nice.
Germany, show in near Chicago, and a show in New York. Might be near your backyard. So that's all coming up next year. And yeah, we are looking forward to it. Some of these shows are double booking, and I will have the Vincent Crowley band also be playing on those fests.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's nice.
And you're gonna be playing with Art Taylor and Eric Stewart, right?
Yep, pretty much. Eric and Art. Well, Art actually played on an Acheron album, but Eric was part of Acheron at one time. Just never got a chance to actually play live. We end up breaking up at the time before he learned the set and played with us. So he gets to actually play some shows now.
Wow.
And so basically we're using the lineup we have for the Vincent Crowley band, because obviously we have ex-Acheron members, and our drummer is a beast and he can play. So everything will be the same except for I'm playing bass again. So it's a little bit easier too for festivals if you have a lot of the same people, because then you don't have to buy a ton of other plane tickets and stuff like that.
That's cool.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I miss I never realized how much, because the Vincent Crowley stuff is very moody and it has aggression here and there, but it's more of a mood thing. Acheron always was the kick you in the balls stuff, and I need to release that. And I think my wife agreed 100%. She was like, "Yeah, why don't you do some of that aggression out somewhere else?"
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I've been noticing, like you mentioned, that a lot of younger people are getting into the older albums and discovering them, and at the same time, currently listening to your newer album, and the interest has been coming up more. So tell us how we can find some of the albums and the T-shirts and maybe some of the links, maybe a little bit of information on this, I guess, right?
Oh,
This is
yes. Well, I am working now with Eddie from the Realms of Rock. He has the Realms of Metal YouTube channel. It's realmsofmetal.com because he bought the .com, I think. And he will have stuff from all my bands. He'll have the Acheron stuff, the Infidel Reich stuff, Vincent Crowley stuff. He's been really good at like finding shirts, vinyls, CDs, cassettes. We are working on shirts right now. He has some shirts in stock now, but we are working on some new Acheron shirts to promote rights. So yeah, realmsofrock.com. Check it out and go to the Vincent Crowley section of the site and have all kinds of stuff on there.
Awesome.
nice.
Yeah. One more thing I just need to ask real quick. Any update as far as a new Vincent Crowley album? Have you started any writing process for the third album?
I have a couple songs written. Art has a couple partial songs written. We just need to get together, and we've been so focused on kind of getting working to the click tracks. We haven't really worked on the new music that much. So now that we have shows coming up, we're gonna have to fit these in between, and so there will be another Vincent Crowley album. The plan is I want to call it Grim Tales, and yeah, it will continue. It's just I don't know exactly when. We're not going to rush, but we will start working on it soon, and probably work on it throughout next year while we're also doing shows.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
So Rich, you got anything else before we go?
No, I think we're good. I think one of the last times I think that I saw you guys perform was at the Maryland Death Fest a couple of years back, and that was pretty good. So I'm thinking that if you do a couple of shows in 25, 26, then maybe you guys might do the festival circuit, right?
Yeah, well, I mean that's all we're actually booking. If it's I've had poor offers and stuff in the last week. And I told them these are just going to be one-off shows on, a weekend date. Make it more special. Acheron is not back as a band per se, as in, we're going to do full tours and stuff. These are going to be special limited shows. And I'm going to book them up to 2026. When they end, I don't know. If it ends early because no one books us anymore. So if they're interested, book us now because I don't know how long it will last.
All right.
Yep.
So,
Cool. Nah, I'm good.
So didn't you have one question about the other band, about if they were going to tour?
Well, he can't even sell the merch on anything. Sure.
Special one-off show.
Yeah, one-off show.
all right. Well, Vincent, I want to thank you again for this opportunity, and we had a ball. Thanks for being a good friend. Again, I still say it to this day. It's just awesome the fact that look, you get legendary status from us, and we thank you for being a cool person and a great legend to us, man. Thank you so much, bro.
Appreciate all the support, brother, and I wish you all the best of luck. And in doing this, you know, these shows and stuff, you know, my YouTube's going to definitely take a hit. I probably won't be doing many videos anymore. I'll do when I can, but you know, I'll still be watching you guys when I can. And best of luck to you. And I appreciate all the support. I mean, because you brought a new kind of flame to the fire, you know, and I really needed to see that because I had seen nothing and seen that has impressed me lately. And it seems like a lot of people are just self-serving assholes for the most part. They don't support anything and they talk shit more than they push other bands.
Absolutely.
And it's good to be like in contact with individuals that are supporting each other, talking about metal, talking about horror, talking about whatever interests us, and not copping the ego bullshit that fucking so many people like to do these days. Because in the long run, we're all gonna be fucking food for the fucking maggots and the fucking worms. So fucking deal with it.
All right, man. Again, thanks a lot for everything, man. We truly appreciate it. Good luck on, you know, getting those shows together and the future endeavors, man. All right, you take care of yourself, and thanks a lot.
Hells, brothers.
All right, man. This is Barry, Rich, Tone, that Goat Metal Show. Stay brutal.